the photo that was of Donald Trump holding the phone while Netanyahu was apologizing to the Qataris. I mean, the hold that Trump has over Netanyahu is quite something.
Mm.
And I wonder if that's maybe a little bit sobering to Putin.
I'm joined by US reporter Harriet Alexander, who joins us now. Good evening.
Hi, Kate.
Thanks so much for being with us, Harriet. We're going to focus on the big meeting tomorrow. Luckily, Zelensky's already redeemed himself at the White House after that awful visit many months ago now. So this is now friendly territory for him. He's going to visit Donald Trump tomorrow. And Donald Trump confirmed that he'll meet with President Putin in Budapest to discuss the future of Ukraine. That will come after a meeting of senior Russian and US officials about the war. If that progresses in the right direction, that meeting in Budapest will happen. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's providing or has been speaking about this evening.
Just talking with the president and the Secretary of State and the Vice President, and it was a very good and productive call. It lasted more than 2 hours. There were various issues that were discussed. President Putin congratulated President Trump for solving the conflict in Israel and Gaza and bringing peace back to the Middle East. He also thanked the First Lady for her efforts to bring back children and save children in this brutal conflict. And the president feels like great progress was made on this call.
There we go. That was Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, speaking a couple of hours ago now. What do you think was said between Trump and Putin? 2 hours long. They did discuss business opportunities, which feels weird when you're trying to persuade someone to end a war. Maybe it's just all about bait, Harriet. What else do we understand was spoken about during that call? Any more detail?
Yeah, I mean, as Caroline Leavitt said, it was a very productive conversation. I think Putin was probably quite keen to speak to Trump ahead of his meeting with Zelensky, because we know that Zelensky is going to the White House to ask, as he often does, for more ammunition, for more weapons. In particular, he wants these Tomahawk missiles, which could go very far into Russia itself. They've got a distance of up to 1,000 miles. That's what Zelensky wants. Putin obviously does not want Zelensky to have these. So we can imagine that certainly will have played a large part in their discussions. But yes, they said it was a productive conversation. And also, I think it's really worth emphasizing that Donald Trump feels like he's on a roll. I mean, he wants this Nobel Peace Prize very badly. He's known to have been a bit disappointed that he didn't get it this time around when it was announced this week. But he wants it, and he feels that he is really, making progress with peace deals and with solving conflicts. And he said that Russia is next on his list. So he's got this momentum behind him, and he wants to really capitalize on that.
I mean, he'll be doing it with eyes wide open. And also, of course, the visit of Vladimir Zelensky tomorrow. What more do we know about that in terms of agenda or the sort of scope of the day?
Well, we certainly hope that it's going to be more amicable than that dressing down in the White House, if we all remember that Oval Office incident. And it certainly seems likely to be so, because if you remember, back in August, Trump invited Putin to Alaska. They had that summit. Trump was quite hopeful then, but nothing happened. And he really soured, I think, on Vladimir Putin, which, of course, made him more receptive to Zelensky and to Zelensky's point of view. And of course, that's a point of view shared by the European leaders. And they've made real effort to visit DC and to stress that in person to Donald Trump. So, it seems like Zelensky is in a fairly good place. He seems quite positive about it, quite upbeat. He was probably not thrilled that Putin managed to get into Trump's ear just before the meeting. But nevertheless, it's a good sign that Trump is talking to Zelensky, has invited him to the White House. And as I mentioned, the main issue will be these Tomahawk missiles. That's something that Zelensky is very keen to get his hands on.
Yes. Considering other options is what Donald Trump said yesterday about Zelensky's plea for Tomahawk missiles. We just don't know, really. It would be nice. I mean, it's another way to ensure that Donald Trump remains at the top or fairly near our headlines throughout the world. If he's to make that big and significant pledge, it would be seen as a huge slight by Vladimir Putin, having just spoken to Trump today. Caroline Levitt also said that it still wasn't out of the question that eventually Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky would meet. That was, of course, banded around, wasn't it, for a time? And then Putin's actions and his seemingly not wanting to engage in any peace discussions at all by a deadline just meant that Volodymyr Zelensky, it looked completely unlikely, further away than ever before. But Caroline Levitt's been happy to put that back on the table again tonight.
Yes, and that's a long-term aim of Donald Trump's. He's wanted to have Putin and Zelensky in the same room, which of course they have not done for many, many years. And I wonder whether Putin is perhaps watching what happened with Netanyahu. Remember, of course, that the photo that was of Donald Trump holding the phone while Netanyahu was apologizing to the Qataris. I mean, the hold that Trump has over Netanyahu is quite something. And I wonder if that's maybe a little bit sobering to Putin, if that's made him realize I actually probably need to do more to ingratiate myself, to sort of play along with Putin. Also, Trump has been talking about pressuring Narendra Modi, the leader of India, to stop buying Russian oil. This is something that he's been talking to the Europeans a lot about as well, because he says, what's the point of me putting all these sanctions on Russia when you carry on buying oil? Earlier in the week, he said that India had agreed to stop buying Russian oil. The Indians have sort of slightly fudged that since, but that's also got to be weighing on Putin's mind. Yeah,
certainly. OK, all right, let's move on to John Bolton, who speaks to us fairly often on this station. Our listeners may remember that his home was searched. And federal prosecutors are expected to ask a grand jury today to indict John Bolton. He, of course, is the former national security advisor in Donald Trump's first term. It's not known why, but the search warrant for John Bolton's home has pointed at charges relating to mishandling classified information. Any idea, certainly on what's been reported in the States, Harriet, about what the charge for Bolton is?
Yes, it is believed that it would be related to the mishandling of classified information. Of course, that's something that Donald Trump himself was charged with, if you remember all of the documents that were stored at Mar-a-Lago. But John Bolton, very, very influential, high-profile figure in the US. He's been around for decades, and at the very top of the national security establishment. He's former UN ambassador as well as Trump's national security advisor. It is believed that this is related to national security, and CNN is now reporting that it was perhaps notes that John Bolton was making to himself on an old AOL email account while he was working in the Trump White House. So sort of diary entries, that type of thing. There's no confirmation yet, and the grand jury is actually sitting while we speak. But if this indictment does come down, it will be the third indictment against Trump's enemies in as many weeks, after he went for James Comey, former FBI director, and Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. So definitely something of a pattern here.
Bolton's AOL email account was hacked by a foreign adversary. That was a redacted US intelligence assessment, which is, equally why this is such a big deal. OK, we'll wait and see the outcome of that this evening. Let's move on to the Arc de Trump, shall we? Donald Trump's announced he wants to build a commemorative arch across from the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. It's been called the Arc de Trump. It would mark the country's 250th anniversary next year, and it's reportedly being privately funded by Trump's supporters. Trump unveiled the idea for the arch at a private donors dinner. They are funding his White House ballroom project.
We're going to build a room that's going to be able to hold literally the inauguration if we want. All of the glass on the sides is bulletproof. It's 999 people it can hold. So if we figure we have 125 people in here approximately now, which I've never seen before. I've always heard it's less than 100. But it's amazing when you have too many people, you can fit them in. You can always fit a few more people in. And pardon the fact that you're a little tight at your table, that's okay. That's better than lots of room for everybody because nobody shows up, right? You've been so generous in your contributions, very substantial money, fully financed. It's fully taken care of now. And in fact, we'll have money left over, and we'll use that for something. We'll use that probably maybe for the Ark.
Oh, there we go. The Arc to Trump. Just give us a picture of this. You will know Washington better than many of us, Harriet. Where is it meant to sit? I presume it's being positioned for sort of full visual.
Oh, absolutely, yes. He's not going to do this half-hearted at all. This is supposedly at the exit of the Arlington Cemetery on the other side of the Potomac River. So it would be at the bridge that then connects into the center of Washington, D.C. I mean, we know that Trump is somewhat envious of Emmanuel Macron and the parades that he manages to stage. Maybe he's jealous of the Arc de Triomphe as well, because it does look in the models quite similar, hence the name. And Trump said that he was given 3 potential designs, a small one, a medium one, and a large one. And you'll be astonished, Kate, to learn that Trump's decided that he likes the large one the best.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that is apparently what is going to be happen. Of course, this is nothing really to do with Trump, is it? It's all to do with America's 250th anniversary, which is next year. And it just happens to coincide with his 80th birthday. So I think expect plenty more of this to come.
Wow. The architect, I think is American, but has a French sounding name, which, leans into the Arc de Triomphe. Nicolas Leo Charbonneau. Trump posted images of the design on Truth Social, so our listeners can pop over to the internet to have a little look at those. There's a piece up in the Times actually about this as well at thetimes.com. So it's been fully paid for. We don't know how much it is, but it's been paid for. And look, work would have to get started pretty quickly, right, Harriet? That is the thing, if this is to be done in time.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And the ballroom is no small feat either. It's 90,000 square feet, and it's going to cost in excess of $200 million to expand the White House. So, he says he's got some money left over and that it's already there. You can imagine that he's certainly leaning on his wealthy developer friends to cough up the cash for this, and then they get access to the White House and they get to go to these dinners. But yes, he absolutely needs to get his skates on, and we talk a lot, don't we, about presidents sort of making their mark on the White House and on DC. But I don't think any of us ever really envisaged something quite so literal. But Trump is a developer and he's very keen to flex his muscles. I
don't know where planning sits, but I'm sure that'll all happen in due course. Worth noting that after it was commissioned, the Arc de Triomphe wasn't completed for another 30 years. Harriet, thanks so much for being with us. US reporter Harriet Alexander with your latest from the Trump dump there.